today at noon. Listen live with analysis and reaction to follow today at noon on 91.5 WBEZ.
The strange relationship between the Social Security system and the 1.75 million people dying from the pandemic.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Clear Channel Outdoor, an out-of-home billboard company that offers data-driven advertising solutions for businesses big and small. Billboardsforbusiness.com.
I'm David Brancaccio. We've often explored the perverse fact that disasters can contribute to economic growth even as they destroy security and well-being. Well, today a new study that finds the horrors of COVID led to the early deaths of so many people that the Social Security system got a bit stronger. The National Bureau of Economic Research details how the Social Security account added $205 billion because, this is so grim, so many people died who would have normally gotten checks. Marketplace's Daniel Ackerman has details.
The early days of the COVID pandemic were really scary, and for good reason, says Hanka Heon-Johnson at the University of Southern California.
So we had a lot of excess deaths. There were 1.7 million excess deaths during the pandemic.
Heon-Johnson co-authored the study, and she says many of those deaths were people who were older than 65.
And were drawing retirement benefits or were going to draw retirement benefits, and they had already paid into the system.
They paid in but stopped collecting when they died, and those uncollected funds added up. Gopisha Goda is with the Brookings Institution, and she says this isn't the first time a public health crisis has left an economic mark on the social safety net.
There is actually an old study about how smoking affects Social Security. Increased rates of smoking reduce the cost to the program because there are premature deaths associated with smoking.
While the COVID study looked specifically at excess deaths, the pandemic impacted Social Security in other ways too. Goda says many people with long COVID drop out of the workforce.
The labor force participation rate directly influences the payroll taxes that are going into Social Security as well.
Overall, Goda says the $205 billion boost to Social Security won't change much in the long term. The government pays that amount in benefits every couple months. I'm Daniel Ackerman for Marketplace.
About 750 workers at the Centers for Disease Control got job termination letters over the weekend, about half the 10% layoff initially expected. And the Washington Post is reporting that the administration is reversing its plan to shut down the government program that gets free COVID tests to people and would have destroyed millions of test kits. The advisory committee looking for government waste is facing a new court challenge. A coalition of consumer and union groups is suing the IRS and the Treasury Department. The suit is trying to keep DOGE people endorsed by the Trump administration out of America's tax returns. Marketplace's Nancy Marshall-Genzer has that.
The lawsuit says Elon Musk and DOGE, the government commission formed to slash spending and the federal workforce, are trying to access highly sensitive taxpayer information at the IRS. The lawsuit says that data is protected by laws like the Tax Reform Act and the Privacy Act, and DOGE is breaking the law by trying to access the information, which includes taxpayers' Social Security numbers, net worth, income, and bank accounts. The plaintiffs include the Center for Taxpayer Rights, the Main Street Alliance, and the Communication Workers of America. Their lawsuit says Musk would have access to his business competitors' tax records, along with information about any IRS investigations or reports on things like tax fraud. The Treasury Department hasn't responded to a request for comment, but Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent told Fox News there are, quote, strict guardrails around what DOGE employees are allowed to see at the IRS. I'm Nancy Marshall-Genzer for Marketplace.
Markets Dow and NASDAQ futures are both down 0.2%.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Progressive Insurance. Progressive is looking for individuals who want to join an inclusive and unique culture. More information, including application, at progressive.com/careers. And by the Marketplace newsletter. No jargon, no hype, just smart takes on the economy. Marketplace.org/subscribe.
President Trump's push to end inclusion, fairness, and diversity programs inside and outside of the federal government has been met with wide-ranging cooperation from the private sector. Now the NAACP is calling out some of those businesses and asking particularly black consumers to take their purchasing power elsewhere. Marketplace's senior Washington correspondent Kimberly Adams has that.
The NAACP issued a black consumer advisory over the weekend calling for accountability for the businesses that have rolled back their DEI initiatives and encouraging black consumers to prioritize shopping in places that are sticking to them.
Black consumers have $1.8 trillion of spending power.
Keisha Bross is Director of Opportunity, Race, and Justice at NAACP. She says the organization is researching and building resources for consumers to track where companies stand.
So what we're saying is you have a choice that you can make in how you choose to use your dollars.
While the NAACP is calling out companies like Meta, Walmart, and McDonald's, Bross says the realities of the economy make it hard for people to avoid some companies altogether. So rather than calling for boycotts, the group wants shoppers to be intentional, which many already are, according to a recent survey from the Harris Poll, which found consumers of all political stripes are already changing their shopping behaviors.
It seems there is a group of consumers that are sort of breaking up with the economy. 43% of them have shifted their spending in the past few months to align with their moral views.
John Gerzema is CEO of the Harris Poll.
That goes up to 66% of black consumers, 65% of black women, and even 69% of under 35 black consumers.
Some shoppers are boycotting stores and products that don't align with their political views, but others are going out of their way to support the companies that do. A boycott. Americus Reed II is a marketing professor at the Wharton School.
Things like boycotts are going to be one of the results that I think are going to shake out with respect to those companies that are actually going to remain true to what they claimed they were in the first place.
Reed predicts we are at the beginning of a larger movement where consumers demonstrate with their wallets that when companies move away from their DEI commitments,
then you're going to pay a long-term price for that with respect to the credibility and authenticity of your brand.
Of course, many of these same companies are facing similar pressure to drop DEI efforts and have to decide which backlash will cost them more. In Washington, I'm Kimberly Adams for Marketplace.
And I'm David Brancaccio. It's the Marketplace Morning Report. From APM, American Public Media.